Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here, and welcome back to the Peril of Cymbaline Isle, our solo Let's Play series using Scarlet heroes as our base rules system. This is going to be session 2, where we are going to properly kick off the adventure after we do some housekeeping. I wanted to say thank you to everybody for the kind words and the encouragement on the last video. I know I said I have been having some trouble getting these videos to the channel because I'm not quite happy with them, but I come to find out that a lot of people are kind of in the same boat where we are all just kind of getting our feet wet and learning the new tools and systems to play solo role-playing games. And that's really what this is learning new skills, learning how to use new tools to facilitate a kind of gameplay that maybe some of us don't participate in that often. And so there is a learning process, and knowing that there are quite a few people who watch the Dungeon Dive who are also just learning and who want to see the warts and all exploration of how to do this, that is kind of what this whole series is going to be. It's going to be kind of chronicling the learning process of learning how to play a solo RPG. So if you remember last time, we did establish our crooked violin inn. So this is kind of going to be our base of operations. The tavern was the crooked violin. It's kind of in poor quality. It's modestly priced, never completely empty, but never really packed. Okay, but there are some regulars that are in the inn quite often. Let's back up real quick. A couple people asked me what this spiral bound book is, and I just want to talk about that because I always wanted to make sure to show you everybody and talk about the tools that I'm using. And so this is part of a series called the Loke Battle Mats, and I initially got these books to play games like Frostgrave and Elder Scrolls Call to Arms on, and they are basically just books of battle mats with different scenes. And the one on the table right now is from the Taverns and Towns and Taverns. And there are 2 books, and each one makes up a couple of different map pages. And you can combine like pages edge to edge to make a bigger scene like that. So they're really nice. Good art. It gives you some a nice setting to have adventures in. You can use this for basic dungeon crawling. You can use this for light and small tactical skirmish games. You do kind of have to imagine the 3D nature of like the walls and that kind of thing, so you don't actually have 3D terrain. But for people who are looking for something that is a lot more easily storable than 3D terrain, I think these do a pretty good job. And there is that set, and then I also have a dungeon set of 2 books, and these have all kinds of different dungeon battle mats, and we will be seeing more of those later. So that is, again, one of the tools that I am using to facilitate this kind of gameplay. So let's talk real quick about the regulars. The regulars are what we're going to call the people who hang out in our tavern. They are kind of our cast of cheers. And thanks to the Dungeon Dive patrons, a couple of you, we have some names. And so I'm not quite sure how often we are going to be returning to them or how they will be used. But we will be bringing them in and out of the adventure, and sometimes maybe use them more, maybe, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to be usually controlling a party because I do want to focus just on one hero and our avatar here for Harlan Peters. But it might be fun to have some more people who we can bounce ideas off of, and maybe they can send us on quests and that kind of thing. And I still am thinking about having this tavern be the central location where we discover some kind of dungeon underneath the tavern that maybe leads deeper into the earth, into some kind of lost world territory. And there is a trap door in the tavern, and I have covered it with this table here. and we might have to figure out what is through that trap door. And we have our tavern keeper here, our innkeeper, and this is Xavier Swifteye. And if we remember, he is afraid of sleeping alone, and so that's why he has invited us to live in his tavern with him. And maybe the reason he is afraid of sleeping alone is he knows what dwells within this trap door, and perhaps he is scared. Maybe there's some kind of haunting that exists below. So we're gonna have to, that is a thread that we might have to give a little pull on. But we have names for our regulars, and we have this woman here she is a half show, half elf shaman, and her name is Rhea. And because she is a half breed, she most likely faces some discrimination out in the town from the normal humans out there. And so she finds some safety within the walls of the tavern, and Xavier has brought her in. And then we have our wise old human warrior, and this gentleman's name is Portheus. He was maybe an old soldier who went on all kinds of adventures back in the day, and we can always turn to him for some wise old words. And then we have Portheus's little friend here. They have kind of a father-daughter relationship, even though she is older, and that is Pip, and she is a halfling wild one. A wild one is kind of a class I just created on the spot, because most of the time little halflings are thieves and that kind of thing, but she has a giant F-off sword, so we're going to say that she is a wild one, which is kind of like a halfling barbarian, if such a thing exists. And she has a very close bond with Portheus, so they're always together. Okay, and then we have Shanthala here, and she is our elven ranger. She has come into town from the wildlands and from the wilderness, and she might be the one who sends us off into the wilderness on a certain kind of adventures and quests. We don't know too much about her yet. And finally, we have the quiet dwarven miner named Brok, and he was a miner, but he has retired because on his last expedition, he discovered something, the group he was with discovered something quite deadly and dangerous, and he doesn't really like to talk about it. And Xavier respects his quiet solitude and lets him drink to forget his past in the relative safety of the tavern here. Okay, so we have also kind of set the stage for our first adventure, and that is called Plundered Tithes. So there is some kind of antagonist, some kind of cult that is stealing the money from local churches in order to fund their evil machinations, their evil plot, their evil plan. We don't know the name of the cult. We don't know who the cult is. We don't know what their plans are. We do suspect that Yazid Nakit, the harbor district official, and his guards are probably being bribed, probably have something to do with the day-to-day operations of the cult. And on our first scene here, we also know that Salim Sakawe, that is a priest. And so the priest we're going to say is Xavier's old friend. Because if you also remember that Xavier is somewhat anti-religious, but he has sympathy towards a local priest, an old friend. So something happened in the past of these two gentlemen, and where Salim decided to become a man of the cloth. Xavier did not, and there was some kind of drama there. We don't know really what it is, but the two have a respect for each other, even though Xavier does not respect his friend's decision to join the church because he was hurt by the church. And so that might be something that we can explore right now. But right now, our main goal is to investigate something so we can determine the name of the cult. One other thing that I did off camera was I did mark that we are going to be on day 2 of this adventure. And so Scarlet Heroes in a solo game mode does put a pretty thick layer of gaminess on top of the role playing, and that is something that I think is a good idea, especially if we are just getting into solo role-playing, because it gives us a goal to work towards. There is this weird balance between solo, and it's kind of this weird area in solo roleplay where you could easily just sit down and play make-believe. And that is not really what I want to do with a solo role-playing game. I want it to be a little more like a game. And so having this rules system on top of the ability to use our imaginations and craft a story, for me, I think is a good thing. One of the reasons why I was struggling to bring these videos to the channel is that I was approaching it from the opposite side, where I was trying to script out something that I thought people would find entertaining. And one, I am not a writer, I'm not really an entertainer, and so it was very difficult for me to come up with something. And I realized that that's not really what I am trying to do here. I am trying to show how to play a game and playing the game on the camera. And so I needed to kind of back up and realize that this is a game, not a television series that people are watching, even though people might get, and we might all get invested in the actors and what they are doing. So we have set up our scene. We know that somehow Salim Sakawe is involved, this priest, and maybe he is being targeted by members of the cult or thugs that work for the cult. They are trying to steal his money for his tithing. We don't know exactly. So we want to play an investigative scene. The first thing you do in Scarlet Heroes when you set up a solo game is we have our adventure. And then in the urban adventure scenes, you are establishing scenes. Each scene is basically going to be a stat check or a combat. And as the heroes win the scene, they get victory points. As they lose the scene, the antagonist gets victory points. And whoever gets to 10 victory points first wins that adventure. So a couple things you have to keep track of is heat, which is, if you remember, is kind of the wanted level of wanted and unwanted attention. The heat can go up as the adventure progresses, and also the threat level, and we have set the threat level at 1 for this adventure, and the threat level gets used in a variety of different ways. So right now it's kind of 0 to 0, things are just getting rolling, and we need to figure out what kind of investigative scene that we are going to have. And so we're going to roll a d10. Eight. Okay, let's see. What is 8 here? An allied actor can get you a clue at personal risk. Okay. Roll a die. On an even number, make a skill check to help them succeed. On an odd number, fight to protect them. Okay, so since we know that one of our actors is Salim Sakawe, the priest, Xavier's old friend, we are going to say that he might be able to give us the name of the cult. So that's what we are going to investigate. Now, we can either have a scene where we get the information from him, or maybe we approach him and he is being hounded by some thugs who are working for the cult, and then we will have to fight them to get the name of the scene of the cult here. So we're going to roll that on an even number, make a skill check to help. Okay, so we rolled a 5, so that is an odd number. So an odd number, we are going to have a fight. So we're going to fight against a couple of thugs here. So let's say here, let's say the fight difficulty. I don't want to roll randomly because I don't want to face a vermin. I do just want to go ahead and face some thugs here who are working for the cult. So we're going to say that there are going to be, let's see here, 1d6 plus your threat level thugs. So there could be a total of 7 thugs. Okay, so let's see how many thugs we're going to be facing. 2. Okay, so 2 thugs. 2 thugs are accosting our priest, and they're trying to get his tithe money, and we're going to stop them. And when we do, we will be able to figure out the name of the cult. We will beat the name of the cult out after them. So here are the stats for the thugs. The thugs have a 1 hit die, so a 1 hit point basically. They have an armor class of 8. This game uses descending armor class where the lowest is better. So in order to hit a target, you have to roll a 20 and you add any relevant stats plus you add the target's armor class. They have a +1 to hit. Their damage die is a 1d6. They have a morale of 8. Anything they do that is part of their thug skill, they will get a +1 and they can move 30. We're not going to keep track of this kind of battle on a skirmish level here. I'm going to use this, and I really don't even need to use this, but I really like this idea. And this is from Ancient Odysseys, and that is a kind of a little solo RPG game that is kind of like Fort Against Darkness in a way. And it uses this, I think, really creative system for keeping track of combat, especially when you have multiple combatants, where you will keep track of the enemy. And then closest, this is melee range. Furthest, this is ranged weapon range. If any characters are sneaking, they go up here, or if you are flanking, then they go behind. And so it's kind of a neat way to keep track of some tactical decisions while still abstracting the combat. So we're going to be fighting 2 thugs. So we're going to say these city guards are the 2 thugs there, and we need to fight them. And we're just going to say that we are closest, so we are in melee range there, and we're just going to kind of theater of the mind this combat. So in Scarlet Heroes, because we are a hero, unless we are being ambushed or surprised, the hero always goes first in combat. We can make 1 minor action and 1 attack action. We don't really need to make any minor actions. We are approaching the scene. You know, we could even set up the scene a little more in detail to find out where this is taking place. 12, we are at a respectable home. So maybe we actually went with Xavier, we went to Salim's house. You know, maybe Xavier had heard some rumors that his old friend was being accosted, being harassed by these thugs, and there might be some cult activity going on. We went to his house and we walked in on him being accosted. And so that is kind of like the setting. And now we need to just do our fight. So the fight is, of course, a d20. And then I also get my fray die. And if you remember, each class has their own fray die. And that is a dice that can be rolled just to add to the damage. And you're going to keep track of damage using this handy little chart here. Okay, so our weapon here is a short sword. It is a light weapon, so we get to add our dex bonus to that. We get a +3 to attack because we have our attack bonus of 1 and our dex bonus of 2. And then we also get to roll our fray die. Okay, so the first thing you do is you read your fray die. And the fray die is a 4, so it's a 2 to 5. So we do 1 point of damage. So our fray die automatically kills 1 of the guards. And it's just 1 point of damage. If there was more than 1 point of damage, then that could also carry over to other enemies that are in the same range. Okay, then our attack was a 9, and we're adding our armor class of the thug, which is an 8, so that brings that up to 17, and our +3 is a 20, so we also hit this guard with our attack. And now we need to roll our damage, which is a d6. We rolled a 1. A 1 does no points of damage. So we hit, but we don't penetrate his armor. So now the thug gets to attack us. And our armor class is 5. So he's going to add 5 plus 1. He's going to add 6 to this roll. 6, 7, 8, 9 is not 20, so the thug misses. So now it's the next round of combat, and we get to roll our fray die again. And boom. All right, so we hit with our fray die. We do 2 points of damage, and then that would also be a hit there with our d20 or normal hit. So we successfully fended off the thugs who were accosting our Xavier's friend Salim, and we talk to Salim and we find out that he is being extorted by a cult. And now we're going to find out the cult's name. So let's keep track of the bookkeeping first. So we won that investigative scene, which means we get 1 victory point. Because that was an investigation, a successful investigation, we also get a clue. And the clues we can use to spend to initiate action scenes. And action scenes can actually help us get more victory points. Okay, the game also has rules for keeping track of the behind the scenes planning and scheming of the antagonist. And so what you do is after each scene, you roll a d10. And if it's equal to or less than the number of scenes you've had so far, then the antagonist side also gets a victory point. So we've had 1 scene, so if we roll a 1, then our antagonists also get a victory point. And we rolled a 5, so no. Okay, so next up we'll take a look at Table Fables 2, again by Madeline Hell. And we will figure out the name of our cult because we have just investigated that and discovered the name of our cult. And that is going to be a 3d8 roll. So I have 2 d8s here. So we will say it's a 3, a 6, and a 4. 3, 6, 4. So 3, we have the slaves of the judging cloud. All right, I'm going to write that down. Okay, the slaves of the judging cloud. So we don't really know what they're all about. Perhaps the judging cloud is actually the red tide, the red mist that has enveloped this land. That might be kind of cool. So the next thing we probably want to do is investigate to find out maybe if we can find out what they are trying to do. We might have to work up to that a little bit. We could also spend our clue to initiate an action scene, which are probably a little more dangerous than a investigation scene or a conflict scene, but they can give us more victory points. And I think once you kind of solve an action scene, then you can push the story forward a little bit more. But I think that's going to be it for this video. These kinds of scenes, I would imagine that they are better off going fast and moving fast until you come up to one that you really want to focus in on, that will give you a better idea of how to push your own story forward. So a lot of them will just be really simple little dice checks and stat checks, and then you might get to one that like, oh, okay, so this is like a really important scene that we're going to focus in. We'll set up a map. We will have more elaborate setting, more elaborate atmosphere, and something to really push the story forward. So you can use them in ways to just do really quick random things, or ways to kind of like laser focus in on the narrative. And I think the key to playing something like this is learning when you should do one or the other, and learning how quickly you want to progress, or if you want to take your time and really develop a lot of details about the story. So next time we will investigate the cult and try to figure out what they are doing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.